Some people come into your life not to love you, but to test your strength. If you've ever wondered why someone with a selfish heart, a controlling mind, and a manipulative soul crossed your path, here's your answer. You were trusted. Trusted with chaos. Trusted with fire. Trusted with the battle that would reveal a deeper version of you. This isn't about what they did to you. It's about what God is doing through you. You were not chosen for peace. You were chosen for purpose. It takes a certain kind of soul to survive the twisting games, the silent punishments, the charm that hides cruelty. You didn't walk into a narcissist's life by accident. You were sent as a mirror, a disruptor, a divine interruption. Not to change him, but to discover what you've been carrying all along. When chaos erupted, your strength rose. When manipulation tried to drown you, your truth shouted louder. You were entrusted with this storm, not to suffer in it, but to grow beyond it. There are people whose darkness requires your light to expose it. You were trusted with their dysfunction because you could see through it. Not everyone is strong enough to face deceit with discernment. Not everyone is brave enough to call out hidden abuse with calm confidence. But you were. That pain sharpened your wisdom. That confusion deepened your clarity. You were not weak for staying longer than you should have. You were being trained in the fire. And now you don't just survive storms, you command them. The chaos wasn't about them. It was about you, about waking up the power that was asleep inside of you. Narcissists are sent to destroy those who do not know who they are, but you endured. And in that endurance, you discovered your identity. You found that your value is not tied to validation, that love is not earned by performance, that your silence has more authority than the loud accusations. You learned boundaries, you gained spiritual vision, and you grew a backbone made of fire and grace. God trusted you because he knew the narcissist's chaos could not bury you. It could only reveal the gold in you. The gaslighting, the guilt, the constant confusion, none of it defines you. It refined you. What they called too emotional was divine empathy. What they called weakness was sacred patience. You were not too much. You were too aware, too deep, too radiant for someone addicted to control. God knew that even in the middle of their madness, you would rise wiser, not bitter, cleaner, not contaminated. They were never the main character in your story. They were the catalyst. Sent not to bless you, but to awaken you. That pain forced you to pray differently, think differently, move differently. Your compassion has now become your power. Your understanding has become your weapon, and your experience your testimony. Someone else is going to find their healing through your story. That's why you were trusted. Not just to endure it, but to rise from it and reach others still stuck in it. Your silence was never weakness, it was strategy. Your tears were not wasted, they were sacred water that washed away your illusion. You were not blind, you were loyal. You weren't foolish, you were faithful. Don't let their chaos rewrite your character. You were the stable ground in the hurricane. The voice of truth in their distortion, the calm in their conflict. And even though they tried to twist your reality, you held on to your clarity. Now you're no longer who you were before the storm. You've been baptized in truth, purified in fire, sanctified by suffering. And you've come out with eyes wide open and no longer begging, but knowing. You don't need to be needed. You don't chase love. You carry it. That's why you were trusted, because you could take the hits and still come out whole, because your purpose was greater than your pain. And now you lead not with fear, but with freedom. So next time you ask, why me? Remember this, because you were the only one strong enough to turn chaos into clarity, abuse into awareness, and heartbreak into healing. You were the one who didn't just survive the narcissist, you decoded them. And now you are the storm they can never manipulate again. You are the lesson they'll never forget. And you are the lighthouse for others still lost in their fall. You were trusted because you are chosen. Not to stay in the chaos, but to rise, rebuild, and reign beyond it. You were trusted with chaos, not to be broken by it, but to rise through it. The storm was not random. It was a battlefield chosen specifically for your soul. There's a reason it didn't consume you. You were trusted because your heart had the endurance to outlast manipulation. Not everyone is chosen to face someone who thrives on confusion and control. You were chosen because your light would not dim. Your boundaries would eventually form. Your voice, though once silent, would roar with wisdom. The chaos wasn't sent to crush you. It was sent to call you higher. Through the mess, you discovered your message. You walked through fire and came out refined, not ruined. You learned how to stand still in spiritual warfare. You recognized truth in a world of gaslighting. You held on to your inner compass even when everything around you spun. You were never weak for enduring. You were strong for surviving. And now your scars are sacred and your testimony transformation. God didn't send you to fix them. He used them to awaken you. You weren't put in their life to be their savior, but to awaken to your own power. It was never about changing their behavior. It was about recognizing your own patterns. You didn't fail because they didn't change. You succeeded because you did. The chaos cracked the illusion. You began to see the lies, the cycles, the guilt games for what they truly were. Every broken promise became a clue. Every silent treatment became a turning point. You learned where to stop pouring. You understood the weight of self-worth. You stopped confusing love with loyalty. The healing wasn't about rescuing them. It was about reclaiming you. You were sent into their storm so you could awaken to your own sunlight. The experience taught you discernment. It showed you where your empathy ends and your wisdom begins. You were not there to save them. You were there to remember yourself. The pain was not punishment. It was preparation for your purpose. Every tear was counted. Every sleepless night had meaning. What felt like endless suffering was sacred shaping. The agony didn't come to destroy you. It came to strip away illusions. In the ache, you found awareness. In the tension, you found truth. You had to be emptied of who you thought you were to be filled with who you really are. The pain peeled away the false roles you played. You stopped performing. You stopped pleasing. You began to breathe without apology. Every heartbreak carved out more space for wisdom. Every disappointment carved deeper roots in your soul. You weren't being punished. You were being purified. Your purpose was too heavy to carry with soft hands. So the fire came. And it didn't burn you. It baptized you. You were not reduced by the pain. You were raised by it. Now you carry purpose in every step. Narcissists can only control those who haven't discovered their worth. As long as you didn't know who you were vulnerable to their lies. They prey on confusion, not confidence. They manipulate the uncertain, not the awakened. And the moment you remembered your value, their power crumbled. What once silenced you now fuels your voice. The love you once begged for, you now give to yourself freely. You no longer chase approval, you walk in truth. When you rise in self-worth, their tactics lose all effect. Gaslighting becomes noise. Guilt becomes dust. The grip they had dissolves in your presence. You were never powerless, they simply distorted your perception. But clarity is liberation. And when you see clearly, they can no longer hide. Worth is the greatest shield. Confidence is the most powerful mirror. They cannot stand in the presence of someone who no longer needs their validation. You broke their cycle the moment you broke the illusion. You didn't meet a narcissist by accident. You were assigned to awaken from illusion. This wasn't chance, it was divine design. You had lessons that could only be unlocked in that kind of pressure. You had patterns to break that would never be seen in calm waters. You had gifts that needed shaking to rise. The relationship wasn't sent to bless you, it was sent to awaken you. Every lie they told revealed the truth about yourself. Every manipulation they used shined a light on what you once tolerated. You were not cursed, you were called to consciousness. The illusions you clung to were shattered. The stories you told yourself were dismantled. You stopped making excuses for mistreatment. You began to ask deeper questions. Who am I? Why do I stay? What do I deserve? And in the asking, you remembered your truth. Their role was painful but purposeful. Their chaos awakened your clarity. That was the assignment. And now you are awake. Your loyalty in confusion revealed your strength in claim. Even when you didn't understand what was happening, you stayed kind. Even when your soul felt stretched and your heart misunderstood, you didn't retaliate, you observed. Your loyalty wasn't blindness, it was hope. It was the heart still believing in redemption. And while they took your patience as weakness, they didn't realize they were feeding your evolution. Every moment of confusion built your internal strength. You learned to discern without answers. You learned to feel truth even in silence. You loved deeply, not foolishly. You gave wholeheartedly even when it wasn't returned. And when the clarity finally came, it hit like lightning. You saw everything as it was, not with bitterness, but with peace. The confusion no longer had power over you because you had already walked through it with grace. And now you carry that grace like a shield. What they called weakness was actually divine resilience. You cried, but you stayed standing. You bent, but never broke. They mistook your compassion for control, your softness for naivety. But inside you was something they couldn't comprehend. A sacred resilience, an unshakable endurance, the kind of strength that doesn't need applause. You endured more than you should have, but not because you were weak. You did it because you believed in love, because you were fighting for peace, because you hoped something sacred could rise from the wreckage. But what they didn't know is that you weren't losing yourself, you were refining yourself. That patience was power. That mercy was armor. And one day, without announcement, you outgrew their tactics. You rose without rage. You walked away without revenge. Because resilience doesn't need validation, it simply rises. You were the calm in their storm, the mirror to their distortion. You were the one who held space while they spun chaos. The one who stayed grounded while they shifted blame. In their confusion, your clarity was a threat. In their gains, your presence exposed the truth. You didn't match their rage, you met it with grace. You didn't shrink in their silence, you stood in your self-worth. You were their mirror. And what they saw in you disturbed them. They saw the love they couldn't fake, the peace they couldn't create, the depth they couldn't control. You weren't the problem, you were the reflection. And that's why they tried to break you, because your calm revealed their chaos. Your truth revealed their lies. You didn't destroy them, you simply showed them who they really were. And now that you know your power, you'll never hand it away again. Their betrayal built your discernment. The knife in your back became the compass in your hands. Every betrayal taught you what to look for, what to feel, what to trust. You began to notice energy before words. Intent before action. You stopped listening only to what was said and started reading what was unsaid. That pain trained your perception. Betrayal doesn't just break hearts, it awakens eyes. You are no longer naive. You are no longer wide open to deception because now you move with discernment. You don't chase connections, you observe them. You don't fall for words, you wait for patterns. And that's the gift of betrayal. It didn't just harden you, it sharpened you. You lost some people, but you gained deeper wisdom. You became your own protector. Your spirit learned to speak and you learned to listen. You were the light they couldn't control and that exposed their shadows. Your joy made them uncomfortable. Your confidence disturbed their performance. The more you shined, the more their insecurity screamed. You didn't try to outshine anyone, but you couldn't dim yourself either. Your presence was a reminder of everything they pretended to be. They couldn't control your essence, so they tried to contain your spirit. They tried to make you small so they could feel big. But your light isn't switchable. It isn't negotiable. It was born from truth. It glows from within. And even when they tried to distort you, your radiance pierced through. Now you know your light is disruptive to those hiding in shadows, but it's also healing for those still seeking the sun. Shine anyway, because your light was never meant to be managed, it was meant to be a movement. Your silence was never surrender, it was sacred strategy. You could have exploded. You could have matched their chaos with fire. But instead, you chose quiet power. You observed instead of reacting. You studied instead of speaking. You gathered strength in the stillness. What they thought was weakness was actually wisdom in motion. Silence became your armor sharp, focused, indestructible. In stillness, you saw everything they tried to hide. In quiet, you remembered who you were. You gave them nothing to twist, nothing to manipulate. Your silence became a mystery they couldn't solve. It created boundaries they couldn't cross. You moved in truth, not noise. They wanted chaos. You gave them calm. They wanted war. You walked away whole. Silence doesn't mean defeat. It means you are too rooted to be shaken by noise. Let them wonder your growth speaks louder than words ever could. You didn't lose yourself. You discovered your truest identity. They thought their manipulation would erase your voice. But in the confusion, you uncovered your core. In every false accusation, you found your truth. You lost the version of yourself that tolerated less than you deserve. You shed the identity shaped by pleasing others. What remained was someone refined by pain, not destroyed by it. You stopped bending. You stopped apologizing for your boundaries. You began to speak even if your voice trembled. Your soul didn't disappear. It surfaced, stronger, clearer, bolder. The identity you lost was never truly you, it was survival. Now you're walking in authenticity, not approval. You're showing up in truth, not in fear. You discovered the power of saying no. You rediscovered the beauty of your own company. You didn't lose yourself, you finally found her. You weren't destroyed, you were divinely redirected. What looked like devastation was divine intervention. That relationship ending was not the collapse of your life. It was the collapse of what was blocking your life. You prayed for peace and chaos revealed itself. You asked for clarity and masks fell off. The ending hurt, yes, but it healed you. The door that slammed in your face was the door to yourself. You didn't just survive, you were steered into purpose. Pain didn't stop you, it shifted you. You were never abandoned, you were rerouted. Now you see it clearly. Every goodbye was grace. Every rejection was redirection. Every betrayal was a bridge to something better. You walked away with more than you lost. You walked away with wisdom, with vision, with fire in your bones. Destruction didn't have the final say, destiny did. You were trusted because your healing would one day lead others. The pain wasn't just about you, it was preparation for your assignment. Your scars are someone else's survival guide. Your testimony is the key to someone else's prison. You didn't go through the storm just to say you made it. You went through it so you could reach back for others still drowning. Your voice now carries power. Your story carries authority. There is someone out there who feels alone, confused, and broken just like you once did. And your journey is their proof that healing is possible. You were trusted with this chaos because God knew you'd grow through it and glow through it. You didn't just escape, you evolved. Now you walk in rooms with quiet fire. Now your presence brings comfort and conviction. What tried to crush you now empowers others. Your healing is not just for you, it's for the world. The chaos wasn't your end, it was your elevation. You thought it would destroy you, but it awakened you. You thought it was your downfall, but it became your breakthrough. The chaos didn't kill your light, it intensified it. It pulled strength out of you that you didn't know existed. Every sleepless night, every tear, every prayer, whispered trembling lips was lifting you. It didn't feel like it then, but now you see it. The breaking was also the birthing. You rose from the rubble with a new fire, a new clarity, and a new mission. The elevation wasn't in spite of the pain, it was through it. You were never falling, you were being launched. What looked like falling apart was actually falling into place. Now you walk with power, knowing that nothing sent to break you ever will. You've been elevated and you're never returning to who you were before.